Hello and welcome to the Incomplete Guide to Film podcast. I'm your host, Alex Pinnell, and today we're talking about fandom. But before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about the release of Batman v Superman. Yeah, this episode is a bit late, should have come out on Wednesday, but now I get to talk about the release of DC's first concerted effort towards a cinematic universe. It's been interesting to see how they're reacting and how the critics are reacting, how they're reacting to how the critics are reacting. Because they hyped this movie like crazy. And in the lead up to this, when they've been talking about, oh, how do you think you can compete with Marvel? Because Marvel's the king of the game at this point. They're like, oh, well, we have a more mature storyline, and we're, more dramatic, and they're more fun, and we're, we've got better, we've got deep storytelling and subtext, and, God versus man. That's what they talked about in the trailer, even. They tried to make it. They tried to make it seem like this was going to be a mature, gritty sort of thing, and I guess it is. But then the movie's actually released, and the critics go, "It's fun, but it's got a lot of plot problems and pacing problems, and it's not great." And a lot of people have actually been saying it's pretty awful. So then, panic in Camp DC. We get Zack Snyder and Amy Adams and Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck coming out and saying, well, we made this movie for the audience, not the critics. You should go and see it for yourself. Don't rely on what the critics are saying, because the critics suck. Well, I don't put much stock in critics. Film criticism, in my mind, they don't usually agree with me. I'll enjoy a movie and they'll go, no, that was crap. That was really bad. It was just not great. It was cheap and it was a bad movie. There wasn't enough gay kissing. Well, that it doesn't have to be in every movie, guys. It does. The film critics. This isn't across the board, because I've actually found some film critics that I do listen to, and I'll get back to that in a second. But film criticism, as I've seen it, especially people who do film criticism for newspapers and all that, they are looking for a certain kind of film. It's the same sort of film community that works on the Oscars. It's the same kind of people as the Academy, where they're looking for a certain kind of film. They're looking for an artsy kind of film, and I'm not into that usually. I enjoy beautiful cinematography, but for me, story is king. And most of those art house pieces don't have a good story that I enjoy, or much story at all. So for me, art house doesn't have a lot for me. Now, as to people that I do listen to, I found a few people who do movie reviews that usually we agree. They seem to have similar opinions to mine. I watch Christian Mark on Schmoes Know, and I watch Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns, because usually when I watch a film and then I watch their review of it, they say a lot of the same things that I do. And they usually come to the same conclusion that I do. So I trust them to watch a movie and then tell me, it's got some issues here. It's, good there. It's, they'll tell me what I would think if I had went, because we agree on things. They're more like me, where some others aren't. And when you're looking at film criticism, you have to find people who agree with you on film They like the same kind of films that you do. And then you can base their reviews of future movies on that. But on to fandom. Fandom can do great things. Am I going to talk about superhero movies? Yeah, I am. But that's kind of the main fan culture right now, is comic book movies and all these DC and Marvel heroes that are getting their own movies and TV shows, and the people who like the content that these companies are putting out. Fans can do a lot of great things. Deadpool would have never come out if it wasn't for fan outcry. And that is the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. That's an accomplishment. That means that money-wise, not necessarily critically, but money-wise, it beat out films like The Passion of the Christ, and it beat out Saving Private Ryan, and all kinds of amazing films, at least money-wise, have been beat out by Deadpool. And that is the power of the fan base. But the fan base can also whine and complain. The internet is a whole bunch of screaming toddlers at times, I find. A good example of fandom kind of ruining things is Fantastic Four, the 2005 one. Not 2005, sorry. 2015 one, Fant Four Stick, the one that just came out and was a terrible flop. Panned critically and by fans, and didn't make a lot of money at the box office. Nowadays, you hear a lot about a film before it actually comes out. And this movie was no different. So, one thing that they were talking about is how it would be a more realistic take on the zany sort of universe that the Fantastic Four live in. Which, personally, I like, because I wasn't a huge fan of the Fantastic Four movies beforehand, because there were two. There was one in 2005 and one in 2007, and there was actually one in 1998 that I haven't seen, but it didn't look great. But those two films were kind of zany and a bit campy, and it was fine. They were fine, but they weren't great. Well, for me, I was actually kind of excited about this film. I predicted it totally wrong in 2015. I thought that Ant-Man might be Disney Marvel's first miss, and that Fant Four Stick was going to be awesome. I totally was off on that. Ant-Man was great, and Fant Four Stick bombed. But in the lead up to the release, they were talking about certain plot points and certain things that they had changed, and they changed the villain's name. And there was this huge outcry about it. They changed it to Victor Domashev, right? Because in the original source material, his name is Victor Von Doom. Personally, I always thought that was kind of, comic book silliness. That was one of the worst things about the films. I mean, you're hiring a guy to work on science stuff with you, whose name is literally Dr. Von Doom. Not the greatest plan, guys. So, something more like Victor Domashev works a little bit better for me, immersion-wise, because, you could see where Doom would come from, because it's Domashev, D-O-M. So then, just Doom makes sense. The reason that he would be named the same thing would work in my mind. and it eliminates some of that comic book silliness. But there was this huge fan outcry, and oh my god, they're changing it, and that was one of the many reasons that Fox took the finished product that Josh Trank gave them and locked him out of editing, cut a brand new film, and released it to critical and fan disgust. So really, Josh Trank isn't to blame for the flop. The studio and very possibly the fans are. Fans can do wonderful things. J.J. Abrams was a fan of Star Wars, and he made probably, if not the best, then in the top 3, definitely, for Star Wars films. And it was because he loved the series and was going to do something great with it. And in this culture of more and more nerdy sort of films making more and more money and it becoming a huge business to do those sorts of films, fan input is incredibly important. I've talked about Alien 3 a lot because David Fincher is seen as one of the best modern day directors. He's directed movies like Fight Club and Seven and Gone Girl, and he gets a lot of critical acclaim. But as a freshman director working on Alien 3, they focus grouped his film and their demographic they were looking for. 18 to 24-year-olds, about my age. Not at the time, obviously. My age now. They really weren't feeling it. So they asked him to reshoot, and they rewrote some of the script, and they changed it to what they thought it was going to be. And Fox, again, ruined a franchise by listening to misguided fans. In a way, the fans are someone that you should listen to because they are your audience. And in a way, I agree with the PR stuff that they're putting out for Batman v Superman, where they're like, no, don't listen to the reviews. We made this movie for the audience, not the critics. In words only, I agree with that. Because, you didn't make it for the critics, but there are major plot problems. That's the thing. It's a superficial film that looks pretty, but doesn't have much substance. That's the thing, That's its problem. But, you shouldn't make a film for critics. You shouldn't try to get good reviews. You should make the best film that serves your audience the best. Because that's how you get films like, Deadpool, I think, has a really good chance of becoming kind of this cult film that everyone loves. And, the Coen brothers do a really good job of this. They have created for themselves an audience with their very different style of dialogue and screenwriting. Their screenplays are very different than any other directors. So they have their names mean something. You can put from the Coen brothers on a film like Hail Caesar that came out this year, and people will go see it because it's a Coen brothers film. They serve their audience the best that they can. They put out a quality product for their audience. So whatever you're making, you might be making an art house piece. You might be making, Yeah, it's a superhero film. Whatever you're making, make it to the best of your ability and make it in a way that serves your audience. Write a compelling story with great characters and make it in a way that your audience will enjoy. Don't worry about people who aren't your audience. If you're making a superhero movie, you don't have to worry about the art house crowd. If you're making an art house piece, you don't have to worry about guys like me that aren't a fan. Who cares what I think of an art house film? Because art house stuff is not my deal. You don't have to please every single person in the entire world. People aren't going to like what you make. It's just gonna happen. Criticism will come. But if you serve your audience, the people who love you the best, if you serve them and you're looking to make a quality film for them, something that they're going to want to watch over and over and over, that will serve you. Honestly, I think that cult status is one of the highest honors that a filmmaker can get. Joss Whedon is a really good example of this. People love Buffy. People love Firefly. Firefly has 14 episodes. Fox, again, canceled it halfway through the season. They didn't even air in order. It was a huge mess. But of those 14 episodes, people loved it so much that they got to make a movie. They got to make a film, and people still talk about Firefly. Firefly came out in the early 2000s. The movie came out in 2005. People have been talking about a show that hasn't been on the air in 10 years. To the point when Nathan Fillion was going to have a bit part in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was going to have a little cameo. Everyone was like, oh, is he going to be Mal? Is he going to be Captain Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly? That would be amazing. And I was on that boat as well. I was like, oh my gosh, he needs to be Mal. He needs to. He wasn't. But people were still so excited to see what could possibly be something from that universe. There's a board game, and there's, from 14 episodes. Joss Whedon is a wonderful filmmaker because he creates these worlds that we get involved in, and we get invested in the characters, and we love them. A little over a dozen episodes and one film created such a deep and vibrant world that people still talk about it. And that is an accomplishment in and of itself. Good day and good filmmaking.